بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Grade 12 students, hello and welcome to my channel Math in Oman with me, Mr. Ahmed Bassiouni. Today, guys, we're going to start the first topic, the first chapter in our curriculum, Advanced Math, Grade 12, and this chapter will be trigonometry. And the first lesson will be an introduction or a very quick revision on what we have studied before that help us to start this topic easily and smoothly. Trigonometry. Actually, guys, you are familiar with this topic. We have studied trigonometry before. But before we start or before we have our first example, I need to identify what is the meaning of trigonometry. Trigonometry simply is a branch in math which studies the relationship between sides and angles in triangles. And it comes from an ancient Greek word, trigonometron, which means measuring triangle. So, trigono means triangles in ancient Greek, and metri comes from metron, which means measure. So, it's all about measuring triangles or solving triangles. What do I mean by solving triangles? If I ask you to solve a triangle, it means you are required to find out the missing side or the missing angle or both of them. Let's have the first example. In the following triangle, find the measure of the largest angle. Here, guys, we are given a triangle ABC. And we have some given information on the graph. And we are required to find out the measure of the largest angle. And now we need to solve this triangle. Okay, let me ask you, can we find out the measure of the largest angle? Obviously, it will be x plus 2. In order to find out the measure of the largest angle, we need to find out the measure, or we need to find out the value of x first of all. Okay, guys. So, we have a really important rule that helps us to find out the required. And this rule is the sum of the measures of the interior angles of any triangle add up to 180 degrees. So, in order to solve this problem, I know that the measure of angle A plus the measure of angle B plus the measure of angle C simply equals 180 degrees. And now, let's substitute by the given information. So, measure of angle A simply equals 38 plus the measure of angle B simply equals x, and the last one, x plus 2. When you add them, you have 180 degrees. And now, guys, we have a linear equation. In order to solve this equation, you need to combine like terms. You will have 2x plus 40 equals 180. And in order to get rid of 40, you need to subtract 40 from both sides. You will have 2x equals 140 by dividing by 2 to find out the value of x. So x equals 70. And now we didn't answer our question yet. The value of x equals 70, but we are required to find out the measure of the largest angle. And the largest angle is angle C. So I can say that measure of angle C simply equals 70, which is x plus 2, which is 72 degrees. And this is the required. If you notice, guys, we solved this triangle without using trigonometry. And that leads us to example number 2. And I need you to find out the missing side. In the given triangle, find the measure of the missing side. I encourage you to pause the video and try to find out the measure of x, or the length of the missing side. Okay guys, so here we're dealing with sides and we have a right angle triangle. So the first thing you need to think of is Pythagorean theorem, which indicates c squared equals a squared plus b squared, or the square of the length of the hypotenuse in any right angle triangle equals the sum of the first side squared plus the second side squared. So let's substitute for this. X is the required, which is hypotenuse, so c simply equals x. So c squared equals x squared plus a could be in one of them. So let's say 6 squared plus 8 squared, and x squared equals 36 plus 64, which is 100. And now we are required to find out the value of x. So by taking the square root of both sides, so you will have x equals 10. And of course, we cannot say x equals positive or negative 10 because we're dealing with a length, and length cannot be negative. So here, guys, we could solve the triangle using the Pythagorean theorem. But sometimes Pythagorean theorem and the rule about the interior angles of triangles cannot help us solving triangles. I will give you some examples. Here, guys, in this triangle, we are given that this right angle triangle, the measure of angle C equals 35 degrees and AB equals 12. In order to find out this angle, we can find it out very easily. This angle simply equals 90 minus 35. Okay? But in order to find out the length of any side of AB, if you are required to find out the length of AB or the length of the hypotenuse, which is BC, here, guys, we cannot find out the length of any of these two sides using the Pythagorean theorem. Pythagorean theorem here actually doesn't help. And here, in order to find out the required, we need to apply the trig ratios. Also, here in this triangle, ABC, we are given some information. We are given that this is a right angle triangle. We are given the length of the three sides, but in order to find out the measure of any angle, A or C, we don't have enough information about the sum of the interior angles of any triangle. So this angle, in order to find out this angle or this angle, we need to apply trig ratios. And also for this triangle PQR, in order to find out this side, Pythagorean theorem doesn't help because we don't have a right angle triangle. So we can find out the length of this side only by using trig ratios, sine, cosine, and tan. And that leads us to the next part of our session. The first topic we're going to revise is trigonometric ratios. Guys, have you ever heard of SO, Ka, Tua? Let me explain what is the meaning of this. Imagine that I have this right angle triangle, and I have here the angle theta. So the side which is opposite to the angle theta is called the opposite side. And the angle which is next the angle theta is called adjacent. And of course, the angle which is opposite to the 90-degree angle is called hypotenuse. So guys, SOHCAHTOA Tua is an abbreviation for the trig ratios. What do I mean by this? Let's take SO. The sine of angle theta simply equals opposite over hypotenuse. So if you are required to find out the value of sine theta, the sine theta is just a ratio. It means the length of the opposite side over the length of the adjacent side. Similarly, if we're talking about cosine theta, so cosine theta, you can remember what is the ratio, what over what, by the word ka. So cosine theta equals adjacent over hypotenuse. Similarly, with tan theta, TOA indicates that tan theta equals opposite side over the adjacent side. And these three ratios, we call them the basic trig ratios: sine, cosine, and tan the angle. So TOA can remind you what is the sine, cosine, and tan of any angle. The most important thing, you need to identify what is the angle, and the side which is opposite to the reference angle is called the opposite. Adjacent side, which is the side next to the angle, and hypotenuse remains the same, doesn't change. Hypotenuse will be always the side which is opposite to the 90 degree. And now guys, let's use TOA to solve this example. Using the following triangle, find sine theta, cosine theta, and tan theta. Then find the value of theta to the nearest two decimal. Theta is greater than or equal to 0, smaller than or equal to 90. So let's start with the first required. We need to find out the sine of theta. So first of all, I would like to write TOA. We are required to find out the sine of theta. So sine of theta equals, according to so sine of theta equals opposite over hypotenuse. And from this graph we can identify that the opposite side measures 12 and the hypotenuse measures 13. So simply sine theta equals 12 over 13. I need you to pause this video and try to find out the value of cosine theta and tan theta using TOA. So guys, from ka we know that cosine equals adjacent over hypotenuse, which is 5 over 13, and tan from TOA, opposite over adjacent, which is equal to 12 over 5. And now we have the three basic trig ratios. Let's move to the second required. The second required here, we need to find out the value of theta to the nearest two decimal. Okay, using any ratio of these trig ratios, let's say for example, if I know that sine theta equals 12 over 13, and here you need to find out the value of theta, you need to apply the inverse function. So theta equals the inverse sine of 12 over 13. By using the calculator, and in order to find out the value of theta, you need to apply the inverse sine, so shift sine for 12 over 13. And now to find out the value of theta, you need to find out that gives us theta equals 67.38 degrees. 67.38 degrees. And this is the required. So using the trig ratios, we could find out the value of theta. Okay, let's have some more practice. In this exercise, guys, we are required to find out the missing side. Given this triangle, I call it triangle A, we are given that this angle measures 37 degrees, this angle measures 90 degrees, and we are given the hypotenuse, which measures 20 centimeter, and we are required to find out the length of side A. According to the given angle, so A is the opposite, and 20 centimeter is the length of the hypotenuse. So we need to solve it using trig ratios, but which one of them? So sine, cosine, or tan. So let me write them down. So ka, toa. Which one of them connects between? Which one of them connects the opposite and hypotenuse? Opposite and hypotenuse. So here we are going to use sine the angle. So guys, sine the given angle, which is 37 degrees, equals opposite side over hypotenuse. The opposite side is A, and hypotenuse is the side which measures 20 centimeter. And I can apply the cross multiplication. So A equals sine 37 degrees multiplied by 20 by using the calculator. So sine 37 equals 0.6, A equals 0.6 multiplied by 20, which is, so using trig ratios we could find out the measure of the required side. It will be 12 centimeter in the first triangle. I hope you could solve this example, and anyway, let's try to solve it together and check your answer. Here guys, we are given that the measure of angle C is 35 degrees, and we are given the side which is next to the angle, which is the adjacent and hypotenuse. So we are given the hypotenuse. Hypotenuse is always the side which is opposite to the 90-degree angle, and the side which is next to the angle we call it adjacent, and we are given that the angle is 35 degrees. And now guys, let's think about what trig ratio we could use. Let me write down the three trig abbreviations, so ka and toa. We need to find out which one of them connects the adjacent and hypotenuse. Adjacent and hypotenuse, which is cosine the angle. So here I need to use the cosine ratio. So I know that cosine the angle, and the angle is given is 35 degrees, equals the adjacent of the angle, which is the required side, which is B, over the hypotenuse, which is 75 centimeter measure. And now guys, by applying the cross multiplication, you can find out the value of B. And in order to make it easier, you can think of cosine 35 as cosine 35 degrees over 1. Actually here we change nothing. Okay, and then you can apply the cross multiplication to be like this. B multiplied by 1, let me take space right here, B multiplied by 1, which is B, equals cosine 35 multiplied by 75. Cosine 35 degrees multiplied by 75. By using the calculator, you can find out the value of cosine 35 equals, approximately equals 0.82 multiplied by 75, and the answer is approximately equal 61.44 centimeter. So using cosine the angle, we could find out the missing side to be 61.44 centimeters. And now guys, let's solve C and D. And C, you can solve it on your own. D, we can solve it right here. So this is triangle D. And here in triangle D, we are given that this angle measures 38 degrees. We are given the opposite, the side which is opposite to this angle, which measures 90 centimeters. So here we have the opposite side. And we are required to find out the side which is next to the angle, which is adjacent. So here guys, we're dealing with two sides, opposite and adjacent. And we need to find out the adjacent side, okay, by trig ratios. But again, which one of them we need to use? Let me write them down right here. So we have ka, toa. I need a trig ratio that connects the opposite side and adjacent. Which one of them? If you say toa, you are correct. So I'm going to use tan the angle which is 38 degrees equals opposite over adjacent. The opposite side measures 90 degrees and the adjacent side is missing, which is D. And now we can apply cross multiplication again. So 90 multiplied by 1 simply equals 90 equals tan theta, or tan 38 degrees multiplied by D. And here you need to find out the value of D, so you simply divide by tan 38. So I can say that D equals A equals 90 divided by tan 38 equals 90 divided by tan 38 equals 8, which is 0.78, and that gives us D equals 115.38 centimeter, and this is the required. And here guys, we are required to find out the missing angle, okay, and also we can use the trig ratios to find out a missing angle. So let's go and solve triangle A. In triangle A, we are given the side measures 7 centimeter, the hypotenuse measures 20 centimeter, and don't forget the hypotenuse will be always the opposite, which is hypotenuse will be always the longest side in the triangle, and it will be always also the opposite side of the, and out the measure of angle A. Here we are given the hypotenuse and adjacent. So what ratio connects the adjacent and hypotenuse? It's cosine. So cosine the angle cosine A simply equals adjacent over hypotenuse, which is the adjacent of the angle measures 7 centimeters, and the hypotenuse measures 20 centimeter. And if you need to find out the value of A, you need to apply cosine the angle. And if you need to find out the value of angle A, you need to apply shift cosine or inverse cosine. So the measure of angle A simply equals shift cosine. The measure of angle A تاني So guys, the measure of angle A equals inverse cosine for 7 over 20. And by using the calculator, you can find out the measure of angle A to be what? 9.51 degrees. This is the value of angle A. Okay, now I need you to pause the video and try to solve triangle B. Yes, here in triangle B, we are given that the angle B, and we are required to find out the value of angle B, and we are given the hypotenuse to be 29 centimeter and the opposite side, which is 16 centimeters. So here we are given the hypotenuse and we are given the opposite side. And now we need to find out what trig ratio connects hypotenuse and opposite. Okay, yes, it's sine. I know that sine the angle, sine B simply equals opposite side over hypotenuse, which is equal to opposite side measures 16, hypotenuse measures 29, and in order to find out the angle, you need to apply inverse the trig ratio. So in order to find out the value of angle B, apply inverse sine of 16 over 29. And by using the calculator, you find out B equals 33.49 degrees. And this is the required. So guys, in this video, we revised how to find out a missing side or a missing angle in a right angle triangle by using trig ratios, sine, cosine, and tan. In the next video, inshallah, we're going to revise how to find out the exact value of sine, cosine, or tan, and we're going to revise the graphs of sine, cosine, and tan, and how can we use them to find out the exact values. See you inshallah in the next video. Thank you so much. Have a nice day. See you inshallah later. Thank you so much.